Every business knows that true success comes from strong connections built and established over time. Whether it's a connection between you and your business partners or your company and your consumers. At Eastern Communications, we believe in a strong and personal connection. In prioritizing both our high-tech and our high-touch solutions, we bring back the human connection in the ever-expanding industry of information and communications technology. In doing so, we've amassed a wide array of various solutions designed to not only improve our clients' businesses, but to also create seamless experiences for their own customers. This is why customized solutions and strong connections matter so much to us. Keep your company files safe and secure through data centers and cloud services that allow easy access for your employees and are scalable to match the needs of your business. We understand just how important proper collaboration and communication are to the success of a business, which is why we can offer your company the proper tools needed to enhance collaboration efficiency all while maintaining an agile and flexible network that is scalable to the size of your company. These collaboration tools are key to developing your business's continuity and are easily accessible at any time and from any device, all while maintaining the security your company needs. Speaking of security, no matter what stage of a cyber attack you are in, Eastern Communications will always ensure that your company is prepared with the help of the Cyber Defense Suite. From before the attack happens, during the time it's in progress, and even after it begins to damage systems and steal information, Eastern Communications is equipped with products and services for every phase. Eastern also provides relevant managed services that suit your company's needs. That way, you can better focus on running your business and leave the technical aspect up to us. Of course, every business needs reliable connectivity in order to maintain its day-to-day processes. Our world-class data services ensure the smoothest flow of data and information for your company. Together, we can help you create personalized networks that are well-suited for your company's specific needs, containing all of the benefits with none of the hassle. If it's internet you need, Eastern Communications Internet Services can provide your company with fast connections and high bandwidth availabilities. This way, you have access to flexible speeds and stronger connections to the internet. Lastly, we want to help you establish your own strong connections with your company's partners and customers. Eastern's voice services offers seamless solutions for your customer service needs and easily connects you to your customers. These are only some of the many solutions and services that Eastern Communications has established over the years for our many partners. And while we still have a long way to go, you can be sure that Eastern Communications will continue to be your partner and take you from where you are now to where you want to go. Together, we can all finish strong for our tomorrow. These days, a lot of companies are changing their business model and shifting to digital in order to keep up with the new normal. With this shift comes a new dynamic threat landscape that some companies aren't equipped to handle. Companies need a strong defense system in place in order to keep confidential files and data safe. The proper defense against these threats requires control across all phases of a cyber attack. From before the attack happens, during the time it's in progress, and even after it begins to damage systems and steal information. This is why Eastern Communications has ideal high-tech and high-touch products designed for every stage of the attack continuum, ensuring that your company has only the best in cybersecurity. Before an attack even takes place, your company needs products that discover cyber threats, enforce a strong defense system, and harden that protection so that the threats don't break through. First, secure a next-generation firewall. This will filter network traffic to protect an organization from external threats. They also possess deeper inspection capabilities that give them a superior ability to identify attacks, malware, and other threats. Eastern's next-gen firewall continually evolves. Not only does it block malware, but it also includes paths for future updates, ensuring it is flexible enough to evolve with the landscape and keep the network secure as new threats arise. It is also equipped with a virtual private network, so that your employees can securely send and receive data in the company network. Now let's take a look at the solutions that can come into play during the time a cyber attack is in progress. Distributed denial of service is a specific type of cyber attack that disrupts normal traffic to targeted critical business applications and services, leading to angry customers and potential brand damage. Eastern's DDoS protection is capable of mitigating any type of attack on any website and is fully managed by a responsive, round-the-clock operations team, ensuring every real web visitor is never denied service. Another product is a web application firewall, which can help defend your company from malicious web traffic. Unlike regular firewalls, a WAF filters the content of specific web applications to catch harmful web traffic that other security measures might miss. Lastly, we have endpoint security solutions. During a cyber attack, these protect end-user devices such as company laptops, desktops, and mobile devices from being exploited by malware or other kinds of cybersecurity threats. Finally, to ensure maximum protection, let's look into the solutions your company needs after a cyber attack has begun damaging your network or stealing your information. First, you will require a managed security operations center, which provides 24/7 security monitoring as well as access to a shared team of fully trained cybersecurity professionals. To round off your company's impenetrable defenses, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing are crucial. These are security testing services your company can benefit from after a cyber attack. These testing systems focus on identifying vulnerabilities in your company's server and network infrastructure. Afterwards, it gives your organization a detailed view of potential threats, enabling your company to adapt and better prepare your defenses for future attacks. As your company makes the transition to more and more digital services and protocols, take that extra measure to protect your organization from outside threats. It's important to keep your company's network and data secure through every phase of a cyber attack. In the new normal of business in the digital landscape, let Eastern Communications provide your company with the cybersecurity it needs to stay safe and have a strong tomorrow. Emergency situations and global crises has had a profound influence on how people live and work, with many employers adapting remote work arrangements. Aside from a stable internet connection and the right productivity tools, companies and employees must ensure that their devices and data can be securely accessed, as if they were still in the office. Which is why Eastern Communications presents the Eastern Teleworker Gateway. Eastern Teleworker Gateway is an enterprise-class firewall, virtual private network gateway, and router. Each model is designed to securely extend cloud-managed networking for employees, IT staff, and executives working remotely. It allows administrators to deploy network services including voice-over internet protocol and remote endpoints with automatic zero-touch provisioning. Additionally, it provides wired and wireless access and increases end-user productivity, creating a secure and worry-free internet connection for your employees. Eastern Teleworker Gateway makes it easy to extend your company's corporate local area network to remote sites across the country, without requiring your employees and devices to install VPN software. Eastern Teleworker Gateway also enables traffic shaping, allowing you to regulate network data transfer, ensuring important applications and traffic are prioritized. So what does this mean for your employees and staff who are working remotely? It's easy to set up. Creating a new remote site is as simple as adding a remote network in your company's user dashboard. Once you've keyed in the access points and SSIDs of your employees, everyone automatically has access to your company's secure network. Eastern Teleworker Gateway also provides secure access to your company's main network from anywhere, with remote access points automatically establishing a secure connection to the company head office. This allows effective forklifting of your office to your employees' homes. It lets your company stay connected with voice and data by granting administrators the capability to monitor and manage the entire remote office infrastructure through a private company telephone network. Finally, with centralized management, problems can be diagnosed remotely using built-in real-time diagnostic tools. Even small-scale IT staff can be empowered to manage large distributed networks via the internet from anywhere. Eastern Teleworker Gateway is the ideal solution for teleworkers based at home, small branch offices, temporary sites like events and conferences, and your employees in the field. This ensures that your employees and executives have the same in-office network experience while working remotely. This is just one of many solutions that Eastern Communications can provide your company in order to maintain your strong connection, not just for your customers, but for your employees as well. With Eastern Teleworker Gateway, we can help your company move towards our strong tomorrow.
pleasant afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As we build a stronger business, Eastern Communications is here to ask you, are you ready to explore limitless opportunities and make a fearless transformation?
The past year was difficult for our country, its people, and the businesses we've built to keep ourselves afloat. Even now, local enterprises all over the country are still struggling to bounce back and recover what they've lost while still dealing with the ever-present challenges caused by the pandemic's persistence. Challenges like acquiring new clients, meeting the needs of their current customer base, holding physical meetings, communicating with colleagues in different parts of the country, or even manufacturing, sourcing, and delivering their products and services. The truth is, many businesses are unsure of how to keep up with the digital capabilities of other companies who are able to thrive because they can adapt their brick-and-mortar businesses to online platforms or create e-commerce spaces where they can still offer their services at the tap of a finger or a click of the button. In order to bounce back, it's crucial to transition to the digital space. We need a strong connection to a digital solutions provider that can help us take that fearless step forward. How can we adjust to the now normal? Where can we find the digital lifeline needed to give every business an equal footing in this new era of online spaces and technological solutions? As we continue to fearlessly transform and innovate, we must never lose sight of what makes our connections strong. Let Eastern Communications be that very digital lifeline for your company. In the past and up until today, Eastern's strong connections have been helping bridge the gap and empower businesses to upgrade their services in order to better serve their clients' evolving needs. Through our wide variety of high-tech products and solutions, your company can also adapt to the now normal. Which is why, during this difficult time, we want to remind you that you aren't alone. Together with Eastern Communications, let us open new doors and create wider avenues in the digital space. Together, we can all innovate and improve in order to fearlessly move forward and stride strong into a new digital frontier.
All right, guys, let's get this started, shall we? A good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to yet another Eastern Communications E-Huddle Limitless Opportunities Series. This is our second session of this particular theme. And if you haven't joined us here before, allow me to introduce myself real quick. My name is Carla Barreto, and I am your host and moderator for this series. Now, I know it's a rainy and gloomy day again here in Manila, but we're gonna make things a little more vibrant today, I think. We've got lots of stuff to learn and a great lineup of speakers waiting for us. And I'm sure you're all excited to get started. So let's get the ball rolling, shall we? So here to welcome us and kick off this run is Eastern Communications Head of Sales, Mr. Michael Castañeda.
Good afternoon, Carla. Thank you so much. Let me start off by thanking you all for taking the time to be with us today. We truly appreciate your continued support for the E-Huddle series. And we are pleased to know that you are always eager to listen and learn through this webinar. You always inspire us to bring better content and even more excellent service. I am also reminded that times may change. The business climate may change, and the market may change. But with constant and consistent learning, we can always navigate and rise above challenges. Without much ado, I once again welcome you all to the second run of the Eastern E-Huddle Limitless Opportunities Series and wish you all a great time. Thank you.
Starting us off strong there. Thank you so much, Sir Mike, for that welcoming message. And a really good point there that, everything is changing around us really rapidly. But the good news is, so are we, because we're always learning and we're improving together. And that's how we're going to thrive in this season, I think. So again, thank you, Sir Mike. And now it's time to get the ball rolling with our speakers. I know everybody's really excited to hear what our speakers have to say today. So let's get right to it, shall we? Now, our keynote speaker is a graduate of Bachelor of Laws in the University of the Philippines. In 2010 to 2011, she studied Master of Laws in Banking, Corporate, Finance, and Securities Law in Harvard Law School. And in 2018 to 2020, proceeded to get her Master of Science in Development Practice, certified in Engineering and Business for Sustainability in the University of California, Berkeley. She is now a professor of law in San Beda University and at the same time is the Policy and Regulatory Specialist, Senior Disaster Risk Management Consultant at the World Bank. Let's welcome on screen Attorney Karen Jimeno.
Thank you so much, Carla, for that gracious introduction, and thank you, Eastern Communications, for having me today. My topic would be on proactive crisis management and developing holistic resilience. And I'm going to talk about this from the context of my expertise, which is after working with the World Bank. And also in the past, I also worked under President Aquino in the Office of the President, under the Presidential Assistant for Rehabilitation and Recovery with Senator Ping Lacson in response to Typhoon Yolanda. But first, let me start. So 2020 was really a tough year for all of us. So even before the year ended, Typhoon Ulysses triggered the worst flood in Metro Manila in years. And this was really reminiscent of Typhoon Ondoy. And even the start of the year in 2020, we had the eruption of Taal volcano, which really destroyed a lot of the areas there. And we even have the island of Taal, which became a no man's land. And then in March 2020, of course, this was really when we started having the harshest lockdowns, or one of the harshest lockdowns in the world. And the pandemic COVID-19 was really something that affected the whole world, not just the Philippines. But something to put all of these into context is that when we think about disasters, which is also similar to what we have with the pandemic, which has been compared to a slow onset or immediate disaster, the Philippines really is the third most disaster-prone country in the world, according to a recent study. And some of the academics and a writer, Patrick Center, also said that responding to COVID-19 pandemic is similar to responding to a disaster. And to elaborate on this further, Professor Davia Downey made a comparison, for instance, with a natural disaster, such as the tsunami experienced in Japan, where she said that one of the biggest places to find information in terms of responding to a pandemic would be looking at the Japanese tsunami example. In this situation, they could really not put people back right away to work because they would be exposed to nuclear waste, which was everywhere in the environment. So this is kind of similar in that situation where the Japanese government had to think, how can they make people safe? And then how do they rebuild the economy? So we can make that comparison, according to Professor Downey, when we think about COVID-19, as similar to nuclear waves. It's in the air, it's in the exposure if you send your people back. And it also had a very high fatality rate and also a very high infection rate, in a sense that if you send people out to do business as usual, then they are exposed to that risk of the nuclear exposure in the same way that we are exposed to the COVID-19 pandemic every time we go out. So in this case, we can borrow from an equation on disaster risk and replace that word with the word crisis, which would make this applicable to events such as the pandemic, wherein it's really a function of a hazard times the vulnerability of a person or an entity, or it can be your corporation, your banks. So this really derives from the interaction of social and environmental processes, from the combination of physical hazards. So you can think of it in terms of a natural hazard like a typhoon, an earthquake, volcanic eruption, but also like a pandemic. And then the vulnerabilities of the exposed elements. So the exposed elements here can be people, or our businesses, our corporations, or for instance, our companies. So, what we really need is a significant understanding of vulnerabilities. So, contrary to hazards, vulnerability and exposure can be influenced by policy and practice, including short to medium term. Understanding vulnerability is a prerequisite for understanding risk and the development of risk reduction and adaptation strategies to extreme events in the light of climate change. So, in this case, we're talking about um, in the context of climate change or natural hazards. But if you think about it, even in the context of a pandemic, it's really adapting to extreme events like a pandemic, wherein what's important is that we are able to reduce vulnerability by having the proper risk reduction and adaptation strategies. So in this graph, you'll see a progression of vulnerabilities, and I'm not going to go into details because we have a very short time. But as you can see, when you look at a disaster or a crisis here in this red circle, a natural hazard such as an earthquake or a pandemic is something that's constant. We cannot really influence that. We can only do so much, but we can't really prevent, for instance, a pandemic from existing because it's out there in nature. But as you can see, the progression of the vulnerability goes first into the unsafe conditions. So in this case, with a pandemic, if you have a workplace that where people have no uh, protocols, the employees don't wear masks or don't have social distancing, those are the unsafe conditions. And then the dynamic pressures would be, let's say, low education and low training capacity. And then root causes can be either poverty or other types of social or economic characteristics. So as you can see on your left side, these boxes are things that we can influence in order to reduce vulnerability while hazard remains constant. So this is the um, formula that I want to impart with you when you're thinking about resilience. Hazard is something that's constant because we can't really prevent a typhoon from happening, an earthquake from happening, or in our case, we couldn't have prevented this COVID-19 pandemic from happening. But the vulnerability or the sources of vulnerabilities for us as people and for our companies is something that we can reduce. So this equation is also something that you can keep in mind. Resilience is a function of reduced vulnerability and increased capacity. And capacity, as defined by the UNISDR, is a combination of all strengths, attributes, and resources available within an organization, community, or society to manage and reduce risks and strengthen resilience. So I want you to really reflect when it comes to you as a person and also to your companies or even your households. Think of all the strengths and attributes and resources that you have that allows you to manage risks and strengthen your resilience. Keeping in mind the formula I gave you that when it comes to resilience, it means also decreasing the vulnerabilities that you may have. And according to one of the experts in the disaster and resilience research field, Thomas Birkeland, he said that the problem with terms like resilience is that they've become uncoupled from their intellectual and technical origins and have become catch-all terms uttered by politicians, civil servants, and technical experts with little or no shared understanding of what we mean. So what's really important here is that we come to an agreement as to what we mean by resilience. And this concept of resilience borrows from ecology, where as a resilient ecosystem is one that can absorb a short-term shock and then in a reasonable span of time return to the state of the ecosystem before the shock. So simply, we can describe resilience as the ability to bounce back. So it's the capacity for collective decision making, both during and immediately after the onset of a crisis. And again, it's the ability to recover or bounce back. That's the essence of resilience. So I would like to introduce this concept of a resilience delta, which was also developed by Birkeland. So this resilience delta is kind of like a framework that allows us to look at resilience, taking into account the shock done to a community by a disaster or an event. So let's think of, for instance, like the COVID-19 pandemic as a type of as a shock to the ecology, to the environment, to the economy, and then the capacity of the community, whether it's the whole Philippines, our companies, or us as individuals, to rebound from that shock, to return to our prior functionality. So, using this resilience delta shows how different features of the community can create resilience. And to elaborate on that further, we can use this graph that shows the resilience delta. So here, this is the normal timeline where this is prior to the shock. And when a disaster strikes, or in this case, let's use the COVID-19 pandemic as an example, you can have, for instance, person A that incurs this much damage on, this is what we see in the y-axis. Or you can have person B that incurs even more damages. And the x-axis on the top is the recovery time. So these triangles here, if we think of this in terms of calculus, for instance, represents the delta or the rate of change. And you can also see the slope here. So what we can think of in these terms would be, if we were to ask ourselves, who in this graph is resilient? So you have person A, or you can even use as an example your company, your business. You can be company A, B, C, or D. And after the pandemic, this is how much damage or loss in profits that you experience, that company A experienced. Or even more, company B experienced this much. And company C is this, and letter D is this. But when you think about who is the most resilient, you can see that when it comes to the recovery time, even if company C experienced more damages than company A, it recovered at the same time as company A. Whereas company B, that suffered the most damages as company C as well, took longer to recover. And company D, that suffered less damages than company C, also took as much time to recover as company B. So this resilience delta really looks at who is the most resilient. And in this case, if we were thinking about individuals, person C receives the more damage but recovers more quickly because, for example, in this framework, the reason might be he made investments in things that are needed to recover quickly from a crisis. So, for instance, if you've designed your, if you're, let's say, because we're giving an example of a person, if this person, for instance, has a lot of savings, has medical insurance, and also is able to work from home, then even after the pandemic, even if they suffered losses, because let's say some people got sick in their family, or they weren't able to generate as much income, they are able to recover faster than person B, for example. So one of the things that we can learn from this would be, in order to decrease your resilience delta, which is the rate of change, you have to make recovery plans. That means you have to intelligently design interdependent infrastructure systems. And this is something that's very helpful, or is a key takeaway for a lot of you who manage businesses or even manage a household in terms of how to be resilient. So with the value of this resilience delta is that it looks at two dimensions of resilience. One, what we can influence would be efforts to reduce damage. And in this case, you have persons A and B, wherein in the graph, you see that the damage is less, even if they're suffering from the same type of crisis, which is the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the other dimension would be speeding up recovery. And that would be person C in this example, where even if you are able to incur so much damages, you can recover faster, or as fast as others who have only incurred less damages. So what are the implications on policy design? If you're thinking about your companies, for instance, what policies should you design to be more resilient? One, you can adopt policies that reduce the amount of damage that a community withstands in the first place. So that comes into how do you reduce your vulnerabilities in the first place? If it means that, let's say, the systems in place prevent you from doing work remotely, then those are things that you have to think of in terms of how do you revise or strengthen that system. And then another dimension would be creating measures to allow for rapid recovery of community functions after a shock has occurred. So, again, the best example here would be person A with the smallest resilience delta, because as we can see, in terms of reducing the amount of damage just based on that graph alone, we can see that person A suffered the least damage after the pandemic and also was able to recover faster, which means that there were measures in place that allows for rapid recovery. So again, the value of this framework is that it reflects the fact that there are many systems in a community or entity that have different resilience profiles. And these systems include physical, biological, psychological, social, and cultural systems. So that's something that we really have to consider in each of our entities or organizations. What are these physical, biological, psychological, social, and cultural systems that influence our resilience to any type of crisis? So some of the caveats we have to be aware of would be one, this resilience delta is a model or framework. So it is an oversimplification, which is why we can put it into a graph and see the effects. But in an actual community, there are multiple resilience deltas that describe the shock to and recovery of multiple systems. So, for instance, even just if you look at the Philippines, for example, there can be several resilience deltas. So we can apply that, for instance, into households. So poorer households, for instance, have a larger resilience delta in a sense that they sustain larger damages and are slower to recover compared to wealthier households. But even in the transportation sector, this can have um, a different resilience delta than the education sector. So for us, what we saw was that in terms of mass transit, they were able to operate again even under MECQ, whereas the education sector still has to do online classes. So it's the same with healthcare, trade, industry, and commerce. The resilience deltas will vary, but the important thing is to be able to take each one and, let's say, look at your organization and come up with your own mapping of what your resilience delta is. And often when you have several resilience deltas, if you're a big corporation, for instance, each of your units or departments may have different resilience deltas, but they can also be interdependent to the extent that, let's say, if one department has a very large resilience delta, meaning they're not as resilient, they can affect the whole organization. So this really goes back into also understanding what a crisis is. So we were talking about resilience because, again, it's the ability to bounce back. But the triggering point would be a crisis, which is the disruption of the functioning of a community or a society, and not just the occurrence of a hazard. So to give an example, let's say if an earthquake happens, and this always happens to the Philippines because we're in an earthquake belt or in the ring of fire. The earthquake, if it happens in the outer islands of the country, don't really affect us. It doesn't affect our economy if it's in an inhabited area. So in that case, if that happens, it's not considered a crisis or disaster. So it's the same thing. Even with a pandemic can happen. But if we are resilient or if we're able to reduce our vulnerability, then we can experience like a minor shock to our system, but not have a crisis. And this is what we've seen in some countries where if they're able to handle the pandemic very well, then they don't even experience a crisis at all. And we've seen that in Vietnam and China, which actually grew, their economy grew even during the pandemic. And we saw that with Amazon as well as a corporation where they even grew during the pandemic. So it's really a function of vulnerability as well, which can be something that is high if there's marginalization or inequitable access to resources, knowledge, and support. So, something that we have to keep in mind, vulnerabilities is something that we can control or change because it can be intentionally or unintentionally enhanced by human actions. And this is why it's important to think of applying a holistic resilience framework in each of our organizations and also to each of us as individuals. So effective resilience policies and programs should reflect community complexities and respond to them in a context-specific and holistic manner. So I am emphasizing here that it has to be context-specific. You can't just cut and paste from other organizations. You have to think of the peculiarities that you and your organizations may have in order to design a resilient framework. So thank you. And I know that that's all the time we have today. I wish I could talk longer, but thank you again to Eastern Communications for having me today.
Attorney Karen Jimeno there on proactive crisis management. Thank you so much, Attorney, for your time and for sharing all those insights with us. You know, I especially appreciated how she discussed the term resilience as a concept and so on, which is, you know, she's right. It does get tossed around fairly frequently, especially here in the Philippines. It's resilience this and resilience that, and it's a very common adjective we get around here. And so I like that she made it much more concrete for us that, you know, yes, there is a scientific way to actually explain and to define resilience. And so as we learned today, it's how low can you get that vulnerability and how much can you increase that capacity to be ready for when a crisis hits. So very, very relevant talk there. And I'm sure everybody's got some great ideas to share or maybe even some questions. So at this point, I'd like to invite all of you tuned in right now. Do not be shy, please, to hop on into that question box you see below and let us know your thoughts. Let us know your questions, because we also will be having a question and answer portion a little bit later with a couple of our speakers. So yeah, feel free to send those in and we'd love to hear what you have to say, okay? So hop on over and ask those questions. Now, let's keep the ball rolling, shall we? We've got another speaker lined up right now. And so our partner speaker for today is currently a cybersecurity product specialist covering ASEAN and Korea. In his over 9 years in Cisco, he has helped many organizations achieve an effective security posture while making their transition to the cloud. His background in technical sales allows him to be a trusted advisor to organizations in building a holistic security strategy amidst the ever-changing IT landscape. I'm sure we all know how that feels at this point. Let's welcome our partner speaker, Cisco Product Lead, Cloud and Endpoint Security for ASEAN and Korea, Mr. Syed Abdul Rahman Al-Sagoff.
Right, so thanks, Carla. Very good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Syed. I'm the product lead for cloud and endpoint security here in Cisco, and my coverage area is ASEAN and Korea. Today, I'm honored to be given the opportunity by ETPI to give you some sharings or learnings from 2020 with regards to the cybersecurity space. Right, a view into how the threats have evolved over time in the last 12 months. And what people are looking at with regards to the platform approach moving forward. Right. So the way organizations are doing business is changing. A lot of the business initiatives that people are doing, some of them have actually been accelerated by the whole pandemic situation that we all experienced globally in 2020. That said, the threats, they did not stop. Right, we saw a lot of evolution in terms of threats, how they were being delivered, how they were impacting organizations globally. And here in Cisco, we have a vast threat intelligence team where they were doing a lot of root cause analysis into some of the key threats that they saw impacting verticals such as the healthcare industry or the elections that happened over in the US, as well as the key technological trends of people working from home. Right. So this report that I'm sharing with you on screen is publicly available. If you want to drill down into some of the content over there, we'll be happy to share the links with you. But just to give you a summary, right, there were some key trends that we saw happen. The first thing was really with regards to how threats have evolved into an orchestrated multi-stage attack, where the first step into somebody's network is really something that is silent. Due to the whole threat landscape evolving into an as-a-service model as well, we saw a lot of common threats that were out there. So things like malware that was being used in different sorts of malware campaigns, doing and targeting different industries. As an example, Cobalt Strike, it actually attributed to 66% of all ransomware events in 2020. So imagine that, right? Just one malware that was part of multiple malware campaigns out there. So that was the first trend that we saw. And the first stage in a lot of these attacks were really silent, right? And then they started doing their own thing at a later time. The second trend that we saw, and probably you might have heard of this in the news in one form or the other, was supply chain attacks. We saw a huge rise in terms of supply chain attacks that impacted global organizations, even the big ones like Microsoft, right? So if when it comes to supply chain attacks, this is something that is quite difficult to avoid because of the integrated nature of how businesses are working today. If you think about the software that people are using, there's a lot of interconnectivity with other software vendors. So SolarWinds was one good example that impacted many large Fortune 100 companies. And in recent times, Kaseya VSA also was part of this whole supply chain attack bubble, right? Some numbers attributed to this. Just in one quarter alone, from Q1 CY21, compared to the last quarter of year 2020, there was a sharp rise of 42%. Right? So really something that a lot of organizations are calling out in terms of mitigating against such threats. And the last trend that we saw that I just wanted to call out was with regards to how the attackers themselves, they were taking advantage on the content related to pandemic. So in our root cause analysis that was done by the Talos team, a lot of these compromises that happen with organizations globally, they were utilizing the same old threats as before, but a screenshot that I'm showing you over here on this slide, it is actually crafted in a way where it was teamed with coronavirus in mind, right? So very interesting again, because in the past, it's quite simple for somebody to see an email that was part of a scam email because probably the English wasn't as good or the content was really not something related to the everyday consumer. But with the global pandemic hitting, people were more concerned about where to get their test kits, where to get who in their environment was actually impacted, that was local to them. And those kind of content delivery methods were part of malware campaigns that we saw in 2020. So it was really a year like no other, right? And the threat actors, they were actually leveraging on the fact that a lot of people were working from home, right? They understood the fact that governments had mandates in place where people were forced to work from home, and they know organizations were not really catered to protecting those users that had to work from home. So the attack landscape basically shifted over here. Some numbers that we saw just on the domains itself. In mid-March 2020, our Cisco umbrella team that looks a lot at the domains and the websites that are out there, we saw about 47,000 domains that contain keywords such as COVID, Corona, Wuhan, test kits. And out of these 47,000 domains, only 4% were blocked as malicious. And the reason was because a lot of these domains were just brought up and they were not really doing anything at that point in time. But 2 months later, the domains actually rise quite significantly to about 71,000 domains, and more were being classified as malicious, and then we started blocking them. Right? So the remote workforce is something that I would think would be here to stay for the foreseeable future, because there's really it's really good and bad, right? So there is that flexibility that you want to give to your customers, but the new normal is such that there are some challenges that organizations will face, whether you're big or you're small. And when you are thinking about how to strategize your security landscape for the remote workforce moving forward, there are some key questions that you could be asking yourself. Firstly, how are you adopting the cloud? And how are you moving into SaaS applications? This is a trend that I see myself speaking to a lot of customers about. And then the security aspects would come alongside it. So if you take a look at how people are accessing applications today, are you able to verify user identity? And how are you verifying the user identity? Is it just by a username and password? What if that username and password was compromised because of some of the scams that I showed before, right? So more people are approaching this in a layered approach, where they're just not looking at the username and password, but also understanding what devices people are coming in from. Are they corporate devices that are trusted? Which locations people are coming in from, really to cement that this user is who he says he is. The next thing is about securing access to those corporate applications, wherever they may be. Corporate applications, some of the workloads have moved out to infrastructure as a service platforms like AWS, or you could be now using Office 365 as a SaaS-based platform. How do you ensure that you are securing the network or the traffic that's going to these applications, whether they're sitting in the public cloud, in a SaaS version, or on-premise? Do you have the visibility that is consistent across all of these different destinations? And how do you manage all of this in a consistent manner? Which brings us to the third point. Questions like, how can you defend against so many different complex potential threats, right? Are you going to buy a new solution just for the remote workforce, right? How are you going to correlate all of those alerts coming back in? And is management going to be more complex? So questions that customers would be asking themselves when they are thinking about this. And if security products could work together, wouldn't that be the best thing? Security vendors ourselves, we a lot of the times have existed in silos, but more and more we are seeing the ask of people integrating with third-party applications and making it more open. And the one way to have it more open is really to the usage of APIs, and for vendors themselves to do the integration on behalf of the customer to simplify everything so that they can still get the best in class security products without actually investing too high of a total cost of ownership. And to do this, the best way is really to have a platform approach, an integrated security design that can protect users from anywhere, right? And if we are focusing on the remote worker should be seen as a network of one, right? So traditionally, a lot of the times we are looking at networks as being those that we manage. But those remote workers today, they have to be seen as one individual network, so as to get consistent policy across. And if you think about, remote worker protection today, in most cases, it will be two things: a VPN connectivity to route the traffic back into the data center where they get access to the corporate applications, as well as all of the security investments. And the next thing is about antivirus, right? So typically a simple antivirus that people have invested in, and something that does its thing based on signature matching. But more and more, because of the emphasis of the remote work, people are adding in a layered approach. So like what I called out, the first thing is about understanding identity. Identity is extremely important. So the layered approach of zero trust brings in multi-factor authentication, understanding the device itself in terms of posture, as well as correlating that identity to different applications that you would have invested in, whether they're sitting on the cloud or sitting on-premise. The next thing is about enhancing your VPN connectivity, because remote connectivity is key. And VPN is not, I mean, it's a technology that has existed for a while now, right? So everybody has some form of VPN. But VPN has also evolved to something like a per application VPN, where you can offload traffic to specific applications through a different route, or only send back traffic that is required because of the destination being on premise. Everything else, you can filter it out or have the visibility through a direct internet connection, which brings us to the secure internet gateway. The concept of having a web proxy on premise has ultimately evolved, right? So when we're looking at the secure internet gateway as a cloud-based model, you can have multi-facets of security in place, starting from things like DNS-based security, a full proxy solution, to enhancements like browser isolation, CASB, where we're looking at applications and cloud services that people are using, mapping them out to risk, sensitive data mitigation, as well as non-web application through things like firewall. So lots of different technologies that are delivered today from a single unified suite on the cloud, right? And the last piece is on the secure endpoint, because the endpoint is essentially the last line of defense. And as the last line of defense, is antivirus, a simple antivirus, enough? More and more, we're seeing customers asking for endpoint detection and response, where you can get more visibility on what is happening on the endpoint, as well as to offload some of these more difficult tasks, like threat hunting, looking for zero-day threats or threats that are evasive in nature, and running playbooks in a simple method, but yet effective, right? So all of these solutions that I'm kind of covering over on the left-hand side, they are today available, on a SaaS-based approach, which again makes it a lot easier for you to manage, deploy, as well as understand things moving forward with regards to security. Wherever your user may be going, could be the internet, could be an application hosted in a public cloud or private cloud in your corporate network, you can do so with a peace of mind through a unified approach for the remote workforce security. And this is not something that just security vendors are talking about, like us, right? If you look at industry analysts like Gartner came up with this term called SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, where they spoke about how the convergence of network and security is now at its infancy stage. Moving in the next 5 to 10 years, they expect 20 or 30% of organizations out there to be leveraging on technology such as this. In their recent report that they launched, I think about maybe a month ago, they called out a timeline for SASE convergence, which talks about how VPN in its nature is evolving, and it's now not only looking at network level access, but also to applications. In terms of security solutions that were previously living in silos, organizations should be looking to consolidate this in a single unified platform approach as the contracts renew, so that it gets a lot easier for you to build policies and manage it. That's on the security side in the short term. But moving forward, this evolution to convergence with the network, with elements like SD-WAN, is also something that will be highly adopted by a lot of organizations out there. Right? So it is a roadmap. It is a journey for different organizations to take at their own pace. That's the whole idea. But when you're looking at cloud-based security to do simplification, this is where looking at solutions that are cloud native is really important, because once you start on a particular solution, it should be something that is microservices based in architecture, leveraging on the cloud architecture, where features can be rolled out at scale, they can be rolled out in an agile model, and based on the business outcomes that you are looking to solve, either short term or longer term, it is really simple for you to consume. Turnkey solutions that are just license-based, no real change in terms of architecture once you have implemented it. And security must be top of mind. All right, so Gartner calls out that effective security and threat prevention is really important. And features is one thing, but the actual detection and protection is something that is key. So that's it. I wanted to sum it up, right? So we are seeing a lot of evolving threats that has kind of hit us in the year 2020, and more adoption of the cloud has actually given us an opportunity, a really good opportunity to rethink how we are doing security as well as the network. Because when we are looking at how moving forward to be a more agile business, we need to be thinking about the connectivity element for where users are going, how they are accessing applications and the different destinations. And security shouldn't be something that acts as a hindrance. It shouldn't act friction, but it should be used as something that can empower the teams to move forward and address their business outcomes. Because once you have security in place, the line of business owners kind of have a peace of mind that they can have visibility and they can be detecting threats at scale. Yet for the end users, they would be having the performance and efficiency in terms of going about their daily work. So hopefully this is an insightful presentation into what we saw in 2020. And that's what I had to share with you. Thank you.
Syed Al-Sagaf there. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing that with us. And I gotta say, if you've been with us here on E-Huddle for a while, if you've been to a few previous episodes here with us, I think you would appreciate with us how well his presentation fits in with all of these talks we've been having, all of these topics we've been covering. It fits in so perfectly. Number one, he says how the threats don't stop. And even just within this session, even Attorney Karen says hazard is constant. So that fits in great, that fits in perfectly in terms of our discussions today, as well as how attackers are capitalizing on work from home. That too has been a common topic here on E-Huddle, how we had to forklift our offices, if you remember, and that attackers only need to get it right once in order to get into your systems. And so that constant vigilance, very, very important. A lot to be excited about in this presentation, a lot for us to unpack later, I think. But if I may add as well, it also ties in with the message of Sir Mike earlier in his opening message, that threats are constant, threats are evolving, and that is why we combat it by learning and adapting as we are here today. So that's really great. Excited for what questions are coming in for Syed later. But let's keep the ball rolling. Like I said, we wanna pack in as much info as we can today. And so what is E-Huddle, of course, without a message from our own Ka-Easterns, right? A presentation from our own Ka-Easterns. So it is time to hear now from that person exactly. So our Ka-Eastern speaker for today is a DX advocate who supports the conglomerate banking and finance sales group of Eastern Communications by helping them effectively deliver the company's value proposition, which is to provide high-tech and high-touch ICT solutions to its valued clients. He has vast experience working for the telecommunications sector, ensuring businesses find the best suitable solutions for their pain points and challenges. As Eastern's Enterprise Segment Marketing Manager, he is passionately committed in empowering businesses to navigate through the now normal via Eastern's innovative and personalized services. I'm sure we all know that by now, that lovely high-tech and high-touch. And so here to share his insights on how you can make your business better through customer service and innovation, let us hear from the Enterprise Segment Manager for Conglomerates, Banking, and Finance Industry, Mr. Giancarlo Gono.
Thank you, Carla. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And of course, thanks to my co-presenters, Attorney Karen Jimeno and Mr. Alsagov, for sharing your time and very insightful presentations. So let's get started. As the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continues to transpire globally, enterprises across all sectors have been developing and adapting ways to transform its services aimed at developing at a safe and stable and smart consumer experience. The first half of this year, we learned how to bounce back strong despite the unavoidable setbacks. Majority of all businesses have migrated into cloud computing for their online presence. Also, the work from home setup is inevitable, in which companies have invested on collaboration tools for their remote working employees. As part of the now normal, it is very evident that some of the businesses are now investing in automating their business processes, as well as the innovation of their business models to virtual workplace and marketplace. Various business sectors will keep on striving to sustain the growth and be resilient for the challenges that may happen in the future. Before we proceed to the main topic, let me tell you about the inspiring story of Elon Musk Tesla Motors. Tesla entered the media spotlight in 2013 along with its CEO Elon Musk when it unleashed its flagship car, the Model S. Just after a year, the car hit all-time sales record in the US with 2,500 units sold, and in Q1 of 2015, sales reached a new high at 10,000 units being sold. It's now considered as a staple within the electric car stratosphere. So the question is, what accounts for Tesla's success? The company's current success can be attributed to its non-conventional supply chain management strategy. The engineers of Tesla first designed a powertrain for sports car named the Roadster. Launched in 2008, the 2,400 Roadsters were sold in more than 30 countries. So what learnings can we pick from that story? First, strategy to learn. Set up a clear roadmap towards your long-term sustainable goals. And financing the journey with short-term business cases you find possible. Second, innovation to learn. Innovate fearlessly without compromising on any parameter. This requires focus on a smaller scope. And third, engagement and advocacy. The combination of a great product and revolutionary act to save the world is a successful consumer concept that can be utilized. And now that vaccines are becoming more available and social distancing restrictions are being relaxed in some regions, business leaders need to decide whether to bring employees back to the office or workplace, remain at home, or use this as an opportunity to adopt to new or possibly more beneficial workplace models and innovative business operations. And that's one part of the equation. Equally important are the right mindset and tools that will equip companies to successfully transition and adapt to the ever-changing business landscape on post-COVID. And of course, what will all that be without clear and decisive actions from the management, taking into consideration the input from the rest of the organization? And this brings me to my first point. The future is already here. In the now normal, it seems likely that firms won't converge on a single workplace model or business operation, but will instead go in many different directions as they seek out models that are tuned to their business needs. The ongoing pandemic has forced a restart, with many banks rethinking their digital transformation programs and strategies. With the acceleration of digital transformation, there is a hyper-focus on customer engagement beyond physical branches by leveraging technology and insights across the financial life of customers. It's all about being even more customer-driven and platform-oriented. More importantly, it is about overcoming legacy technology or the integration of digital technologies, also embracing new ways of working to be digitally fit and resilient amid the uncertainties ahead, strengthening innovation, protecting margins, and growing revenues. So who are the major players or racers, and how digitally fit are they towards the new world of financial service? Neobanks. These are what we call fully digital banks that operates exclusively online without traditional physical branch networks. We expected to see more of this type of player by 2025, ushered in by liberalization of several markets and the issuance of new banking licenses. Big traditional incumbents. The 100 largest banks in Asia Pacific region, which have on average 70 years of existence, implying they have experience in managing booms and busts of the economy. They can also be digital first. For some of these players, the option is to launch their own digital brands. They have been smoothly managing their costs well and is not overspending to generate revenue. And targeting to being digital first lets them aspire for even more operational efficiency. Small and mid-tier banks. Niche propositions are still possible in the region. However, without scale and talent with the right digital skill set, mid and small tier institutions will find it hard to find ROI of their technology investments. The best alternative for them is to partner with technology firms or solutions providers. Partnership might be based on as a service and on-demand modes of technology acquisitions. Fintechs, as we all know, the pandemic introduced massive gains and also challenges to the business of fintechs. Those that had grown big enough by 2019 or before the pandemic had a higher chance of success, with some of them gaining more market share than expected. Fintech categories that have typically shown success, including payments, wealth advisory, alternative data, lending platforms, and account origination. Market infrastructure. Payment networks, shared services, and financial community associations contribute to the race to digital by creating frameworks of cooperation and new business model. Market infrastructure should help by making it easier for individual parties to take on digital innovation. So success in any and all of the models and new business processes rely on two requirements: reliable connectivity and the right tools. Everyone deserves a trustworthy and reliable internet service provider, especially now that we are all trying to ease into the new normal. Next is weigh your options. Weighing your options means carefully think of all the possibilities or choices you make for your business to succeed post-pandemic. So this involves finding the right workplace model, the right technologies, and the right mindset. From a technological perspective, business leaders and management who's weighing the potential options should look their company's purpose and strategy, as well as their employees' preference and, of course, work styles. And most importantly, what their customers need, in short, innovative, and of course with purpose and not just for the sake of innovating. Okay, first, start with customer needs and work back to technology. The innovations that have the most impact solve real customer needs while also improving, optimizing, and streamlining internal operations. Then to innovate successfully and stay ahead of the curve, you need to foster a culture of innovation across your business and become highly responsive and changing customer needs. And finally, keep looking ahead. It's important to not get stuck in response mode for too long after the event. At its heart, innovation is all about driving change yourself. If you stay focused on keeping up what's going on today, you'll miss valuable opportunities to shape the future yourself. In other words, you'll always be the disrupted, never the disruptor. So finding opportunities post-pandemic is a combination of timely, customer-centric ideas for change, practices that help you develop and test the change quickly, and the technology required for your new products and services. Given all these, it may seem like an unsettling time or even daunting to be making changes to the workplace and other aspects of a business. Yet business sectors can afford to hesitate because these decisions help define their path out of the pandemic and find opportunities and success after the pandemic. But of course, there may be setbacks and adjustments required. Organizations should identify the most important processes for each major business, geography, and function, and re-envision them completely with involvement of employees. It is also important that employees are provided with any and all training necessary to enable them to make the desired change and follow this up with employee feedback. This will help the organization identify gaps in their trainings and available resources. So they can make adjustments that improve employees' ability to adapt to change. Specifically for banking industry, digital transformation requires a seismic shift in leadership focus and organizational culture. But it also requires an understanding of the components of digital transformation most in need of change. Because no company can transform all at once. As part of the strategic plan process, each organization must prioritize transformation efforts based on their own business objectives. So here are the 7 essential components of digital banking transformation success by the Financial Brand and McKinsey. First is become a digital and analytics leader. Unlocking the full potential of the digital banking transformation requires the use of data, analytics, and artificial intelligence to deliver an exceptional customer experience. Second, enhance customer experience. The pandemic shifted customers' use of digital technology in an instant, creating more awareness of the potential of digital apps and creating new digital habits. The integration of new technologies improve use of data and analytics, and new digital apps have enabled customers to get what they want almost exactly at the moment they want it. Foster innovation. Digital transformation cannot be achieved without a culture of innovation. Innovation and digital transformation are interlinked and correlated. The threat for those organizations not fostering innovation as part of the digital transformation process is that traditional and non-traditional competition is changing and banking ecosystem by embracing innovation as part of their business model. Also leverage modern technologies. Banks and other financial service providers must deploy new technologies in all areas of business, changing the way organizations operate and deliver value to customers. The reason for embracing new technologies is because the playing field in financial industry has changed because of the new competitors and greater awareness by consumers of what is possible through modern technologies. And another one is upgrading systems and processes. The prevalence of legacy systems still hinders most financial institutions' ability to successfully embark on a digital banking transformation strategy. In a research done by McKinsey, legacy systems are considered a primary barrier to transformation. The good news is that there are many solutions providers that can upgrade systems incrementally, allowing organizations to focus on areas of greatest need. Next is reskill workforce. The skills needed for embarking on digital transformation journey most likely do not exist in sufficient numbers in most financial institutions, making talent management and employees reskilling particularly important. And having discussed all of that, of course, it's very important to align leadership and culture for digital future. As mentioned earlier, digital transformation requires more than just updating the technology or building new digital applications. Failure to align the efforts, values, and behaviors of leadership and employees can create friction and risk within the organization. Alternatively, when leaders embrace the changes that are needed and supports a comprehensive and collaborative effort to advance digital transformation, all efforts to become digital will have a greater chance of success. So despite the uncertainty about the course of the pandemic, the time to act is now. Those institutions that do so will emerge more prepared to compete in an ever-changing banking ecosystem with a stronger value proposition, greater efficiency, and higher profitability. In a span of a year, the banking landscape has undeniably changed, putting immense pressure on traditional institutions to innovate and build customer-centric solutions, leading towards for the industry's future to be mobile-focused. The left table shows a study by the financial brand in McKinsey that displays some data about changes in consumer banking behavior before and after the height of the pandemic. It clearly shows that today's customer journey is channel agnostic. Customer or consumers can start from the website, go to their mobile, chat with a bot, or pick up the phone and talk to a customer representative. Throughout the journey, even if their touch point is different, the customer expects the same experience regardless of the channel. In fact, nowadays, 57% of the customers would prefer internet banking compared to the number before the pandemic, which only accounts to below 50%. Same with the interest of the consumer to use mobile apps for banking. Before the pandemic, it was also below 50%. Now it moved up to 55%. More are now leaning towards using mobile apps to handle their finances and other financial transactions. And an increase of 6% coming from the 15%, now it's 21% of customers would prefer talking chatbots when interacting with banks. Moreover, in 2020, the Philippines showed the biggest migration into digital banking in ASEAN region. The story in the years to come will be of deepening digital relationships, On the right side of the slide, it shows some data and insights from IDC that shows 2025 Philippine banking opportunities and outlook. So for the opportunities, we are expecting for new brands, and most incumbent banks will create digital banks. As the BSP has released guidelines for digital banks, more new entrants will have their eyes on the untapped potential for payments and lending. Banks are expected to co-create features with fintechs and the stronger than ever telecommunication companies to improve distribution and availability of banking offerings. Next is the race for new products. 60% of banking customers are willing to shift to other players that are more digital. Banks should deliver unique products ideated for a rapid, urbanizing, but highly underpenetrated banking market. New lending and innovative payment schemes are ways to deepen the customer relationship. And last, for the opportunities, data excellence incoming. After investments into new core systems and surrounding channel of engagement, banks will have the foundations of being data-driven enterprises. Banks will be available to integrate new and current data to improve product offers. Data can be shared to and from third parties to offer banking services within an ecosystem. There is an opportunity to reap returns with electronic KYC and customer identity integration, coupled with investment in workflow automation and on digital platforms. And for Philippine banking financial industry outlook towards 2025, first, digital banks have seen massive growth in new customers and are expected to be on track to grow their customer base by at least 80% every year until 2025. Second, 60% or 6 of the top 10 banks will launch their own digital banking brands, creating dual faces for digital in the market. Third, unbanked and underbanked segments in the Philippines are expected to cut by 50% or half of the bankable population. Then, taking all that into consideration, here is IDC's 10 strategic investment and grow priorities leading towards 2025. First, non-negotiables of great customer experience. Availability of services, fast turnaround time, and empathy are the top 3 factors driving customer loyalty. Second, revenue sources. A back-to-basic trend has overtaken the need for new revenue sources. Banks will be focusing on digitalizing their core business of lending with some focus subsequently on deposits. Third, truly omni-channel, truly omni-experience. Banks nowadays are increasingly focused on interactions through innovative channels, not just on transactions with new ways to interact, such as pre-staged transactions and intelligent automation. Fourth, modern core banking. 44% of the top 250 banks across Asia Pacific will complete their connected core transformation, working on platform-based and componentized modernization and API or application programming interface enablement. And then smart and intelligent banking. 60% of banks in Asia Pacific will leverage AI or machine learning technologies for data-driven decisions. 6, recommendations and advisory base. It's predicted that 18% of banks' business in Asia Pacific will be advisory based by 2025 and expected to continuously grow. Banks need the ability to proactively reach out to customers at the right time with the right advice and offer. Next is lifestyle integration. 6 lifestyle ecosystems or segments will be prioritized by the majority of banks. So these are home, health, entertainment, retail, transport, and travel and education. Another one is open banking. Regulations for open banking require banks to permit customers to share their own transaction data with third parties, made possible through APIs. Banks revisit their open banking strategies after a detour to risk management in 2020. Next is ecosystem strategies that call for agile. 60% of banks in Asia Pacific will grow their ecosystem, integrating fintech solutions from cloud marketplaces and enriching transactions from banks' core system. And lastly, high-impact business processes. Banks across Asia Pacific target to attain 80% of improvements overall to business processes. This includes KYC or Know Your Customer onboarding and origination, credit collections, and advisory. Banks have seen an increase in contact center usage, requiring greater integration with human agents in revitalized channels. And now I'd like to share to all of you the Eastern story, our story, customer engagement. At Eastern, it all starts with knowing exactly what our customers need. Our conversation with them starts with, how can we help you? That's what we did pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and definitely will continue to do post-pandemic. We listen to them and make them sure that services we provide are aligned with helping them maintain or grow their business. Quality and consistency. We make sure that we adhere to the international best practice and standards and have acquired accreditations and certifications to establish our capability to not only provide best-in-class solutions, but also to be able to support and maintain this with stability and uniformity. Portfolio management. Fortunately, we recognized that we had to adjust to better serve the evolving needs of our customers and industries we served a couple of years ago. We transitioned from being a telco provider to an ICT solutions provider. Aside from that, we have connectivity and voice solutions. We have a full suite of collaboration, cloud, and cybersecurity solutions. The pandemic forced us to accelerate our digital transformation journey, and we had to quickly pivot and shift our focus even more to non-core or non-traditional products and services. And by doing so, it opened a lot of opportunities for us, and we are enabling our customers to discover business opportunities as well. Geographical expansions. And as a part of our commitment to serve the needs of our base customers and potential customers across the country, we push forward with our expansion plans, which is currently in full swing. And to finally wrap this up, I'd like to leave you with this quote. Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. It means that if you are so fearful, nothing will work out for you, making you think everything is so limitless with no hope. If you want to become successful, you have to let go of fear in your way and have an innovative thinking, because fear stops us from achieving our goals, whether in business or in life in general. To develop a mindset for innovative thinking, you should eliminate the fear of failing and the fear of not knowing what to do. Overcoming your fears can help you succeed. That being said, we all have to be fearless and then embrace the limitless opportunities that may come. Let's all stride strong. So thank you everyone for listening, and have a great afternoon.
Great quote to end on there. Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. Really good thing to keep in mind. Thank you, Mr. Giancarlo Gono from Eastern Communications, of course, for sharing that Eastern insight with us today. And I think one of the segments of his presentation really rings so true with all of us, because we're not just thinking of ourselves as businesses or professionals or corporations, but also the experience as individuals. And it really shows, or it really echoes, I suppose, how we handle our money in the now normal or in the new normal, whichever you'd like to call it. But how we handle our money now has changed so dramatically. And, behaviors have changed very much. And the way we trust technology has changed very much. I think it's pretty much understood at this point that the pandemic really was an accelerator of change and of adaptation of that digital transformation. And so here we are now. And who'd have thought that we would be at this point? You so heavily invested in these new options, or in digital banks even, and it's very, very interesting to see it unfolding, I think. But at this point, I'd like to remind everyone that if you have any questions for our speakers, now is the time to drop those into our comment box, because our Q&A session is coming up in just a bit. So we want to hear what you guys have to say, so we can try and get to as many of those as we can in a little while. But first, I think it's time to take a short breather. What do you guys think? Let's take a short breather. And if you joined us before here on E-Huddle, you know what is coming up right now, actually. And it is, of course, our electronic raffle. And it's very, very simple to participate, because we've already done all the legwork for you. So here's how it works. If you are a winner of our electronic raffle, all that's gonna happen is we're gonna flash your name on the screen. If you see that it's your name, very, very simple. All you gotta do is take a screenshot. Take that screenshot and send it to us at marketing@etpi.com.ph with the subject line Eastern E-Huddle 28 July 2021 raffle. And of course, all that info you see in that blue box right there. Okay, don't forget to include all that info because we wanna get those prizes to you as soon as possible, of course, okay? Now, let's find out now what exactly is at stake. Very, very exciting prizes here. Now, let's take a look now for our minor prizes. We have the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K and the Xiaomi Smart Band. Those two are up for grabs in our minor raffle round, while our major raffle prize of the day is that JBL wired over-ear headset with the flip-up mic. Fancy schmancy gear up for this raffle. So we're not gonna hold the suspense much longer. Let's find out now, starting with the minor prizes and the winner of the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Let's roll that drum roll. The winner of the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K is, let's see now, Karina Salazar. Congratulations to you. Karina, we gotta take that screenshot right now. You're gonna need it. So I'm gonna give you a couple more seconds to do that. Congratulations to Karina Salazar. Now, one more minor prize to give, guys. Who do you think it's gonna be? Who is the winner of the Xiaomi Smart Band? Let's roll that dramatic drum roll once again there. Congratulations to, who's it gonna be? Jovins Johnson, congratulations to you. Jovins, you gotta take that screenshot, don't forget. Okay, we're gonna give you a couple more seconds to do that. Alrighty. So congratulations to Jovins and Karina, the winners of our minor raffle prizes. Everyone, if it wasn't your name on the screen, don't lose heart just yet. Maybe you're destined for our major prize of the day. So don't go too far because we're going to be giving that away in just a little bit. But first, it is time to open up the floor for our question and answer segment. Now, unfortunately, Attorney Karen Jimeno won't be able to join our Q&A today, but no worries, we've still got Mr. Syed Al-Sagoff and Mr. Giancarlo Gono joining me here on screen. Gentlemen, hello there. It's so great to have some company here on screen. How are you both doing? Oop, hold on. I think.
Hello.
Okay, Gian, I hear you fine. Syed, could I give your mic another test there? You know how it is. We always got to check. This is how things are now. Muting and the unmuting and, you know, I think we have yet to hear you, Syed. We're going to work on that. Let's check on that mic there. Okay, don't worry. We're going to work on getting you audible here. Sir Giancarlo, can I hear you just fine?
Hello, Carla.
There we go.
Can you
Okay.
hear me?
So hopefully
thank
we're
you.
going to get Syed's audio back on. Oh, none just yet, but we're going to work on that. Maybe let's double check again on that microphone, Syed. I think we got to turn on that microphone, see what's up there. But can you hear me fine? Okay, he can hear me. So, okay, we're going to be working behind the scenes there to fix it. Oh, there. How about now? Can we give that another try, Syed?
Testing.
Yeah,
Testing, 1, 2,
there we
3.
are.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
There you go.
You know how it is, guys. It happens to the best of us. And there's all kinds of technical stuff happening behind the scenes. So we're always checking. We're always, you know, fidgeting around with all the settings back there. So good. We see each other just fine. We hear each other just fine. Let's answer some questions, shall we? Okay. Gentlemen, this is how it's going to go. I've got a couple of general questions for the both of you. And so each of you will be answering a couple times the same two questions. And then I've got some more specific ones for each of you, which is, of course, more particular to your respective fields of expertise, all right? So let's start with
All right.
our first general question for the both of you. Let's jump right into this. And our first general question is, what behaviors or businesses or technological trends that emerged during the pandemic do you see sticking or continuing post-pandemic? So what's going on right now that you guys see sticking? Let's start with you, Gian.
All right. Thanks, Carla. We saw our base clients and potential customers and we ourselves embrace digital from online shopping to online banking. We saw how a lot of us adjusted and became comfortable using technology to go about our daily lives. And based on the insights that we gathered on consumer behavior and the industries we support, this will most likely continue even after the pandemic. And this will contribute to the continued rise of technologies like the cloud, SASE, and AI, IoT, and of course, cybersecurity, which are all needed to support digital technologies and trends. And of course, all of solutions and also data services. And just to point out again, companies must be agile in order to address the needs of the customers post pandemic by constantly taking a look at their processes, people, and of course technologies.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gian. And I think you were able to share with us in your presentation how, yeah, we've really come to embrace, or be more comfortable, as you just said now. We're so much more comfortable now with having our money in the, digitally handled. And it's not so much anymore about physically going to our banks and physically handing over our money and physically transacting with cash. And so it's amazing how quickly we've adapted that and how quickly we've come to be comfortable with it. I mean, pre-pandemic, if you had asked me to transfer a whole chunk of money via just online on my computer, I would be very mistrustful. But that's not the case anymore, and that's pretty amazing. So, Syed, let's get your thoughts on this same question. What do you see sticking or continuing?
So I think the biggest change that everybody went through with the whole COVID situation is that people had to work from home, right? So there was a lot of lockdown measures that were implemented by the government, and people kind of got used to it after a while. I think at the start, people were still hesitant. They don't really know how to do it. Businesses were kind of scratching their heads on now how do we give them devices? How are they going to manage the kids who are now also working from home? Stuff like that. But now, after about 1.5 years, I would say that this has become a norm, right? So when you hear about the new normal that people are speaking about, this is really it, right? The businesses are understanding that flexibility in terms of workplace should be there. It should be kind of like an entitlement, and we're seeing this from organizations big and small. So with that, I think the mindset for a lot of organizations, they would have to think about how to complement this security strategy in place, a networking strategy, so doing connectivity. And I think Gian mentioned about how agile it is, right? How agile is being important. So I see that as a thing that would stay. So people working from home.
I think I definitely have to agree with that. I think not just personally, but with people that I've come to interact with in recent times, as well as webinars and such, it is something that's come up a lot. In fact, it was in the Eastern Communications presentation last week, wherein there are different ways that companies are thinking of what are our options for post-pandemic, or it won't truly be fully back to normal or fully back to the way it was, wherein the whole workforce comes back to the office every single day, every day of the week. And so I think you're absolutely right that it's gonna, as you say, it's gonna be kind of even an entitlement at this point, even as early as now, wherein people don't need to, or maybe even don't have to be physically present anymore, especially if their companies are equipping them with the right protections and security measures for their work, which is being done remotely. So thank you so much to you both for answering that general question of ours. And just to pivot on that, like I said, it is something that a lot of companies are wondering about or exploring the options for. And so that brings us to our next general question, which is, what should enterprises do to adapt to the ever-changing business landscape here in the Philippines in particular? And how can they be future-proofed? Let's bring it back to you, Gian.
Okay. Companies should regularly and strategically reevaluate and assess their business processes. And this should give them an opportunity to identify and see what they can still continue doing or using, and what they need to change or innovate. Also, they should examine the technologies that they are utilizing and determine the effectiveness of these, and if it's still beneficial for them, should they retain them or now look for new solutions that would help them address their pain points and challenges. And um, Eastern Communications can definitely help with this or in this aspect. As a telco and ICT solutions provider, we can sit down with them and know exactly how we can help them.
Hmm. Thanks for that, Gian. I think a good point there about, it's not a one and done kind of thing wherein you'll review your practices and you'll review your what you have in place maybe at the start of the year, and you leave it alone for the next 5 years. That's not the environment we're in anymore. So if I may just quickly, just a quick follow-up question to that, Gian, how often should we review these measures that we have in place? How often would Eastern recommend, if or does that vary per type of business, or any thoughts you can share with us on that?
Um, okay, it really depends. As I mentioned earlier, as long as it's working or you're not experiencing any problems or challenges, just continue. Or you can also definitely innovate to improve the technological advancement in your company, or um, to enhance basically your business processes.
Right. And yeah, we have been hearing from you guys at Eastern that, it does indeed vary. And it's good to know as well that Eastern does offer different solutions depending on the scale of your business or even the field of your business. So good point there that it will vary depending on where you're at. So the same question for you, Syed. How can we future proof, particularly here in the Philippines, and what can enterprises do to adapt to this ever changing landscape we're in?
Right. So I think again mentioned a very good point. Right. The idea of being agile is really important. We shouldn't be, organization shouldn't be planning too far ahead and then sticking to it no matter the external circumstances, because we really don't know what will impact the globe or what will impact Philippines. Right. So taking that startup mindset, I think, can be very key, and leveraging on cloud technologies that could be something that has a lot of good benefits moving forward, right? Because pay as a service models are something that is common today. And you can scale up, scale down. You can maybe pivot your business should there be a need to, due to some external unforeseen circumstances, and and just take it that change is the only constant, right? Because it is what it is, right? And we see
Absolutely.
that with a lot of organizations.
Definitely, that's a good point. That changes are only constant, especially when we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're all trying to find ways, not just to survive or stay afloat, but to thrive even. And we all want that for our businesses, and we all want that, even as individuals or as consumers. So thanks for that, gentlemen. I think that was our last general question. Let's dive in a little deeper now. According to your respective fields here, I'll bring it back to you, Gian. And connects quite well to our previous question, actually. So, of course, enterprises are constantly trying to be agile in this environment, constantly trying to, pivot in the best possible way to help not just their business, but of course to benefit their consumers. And so, Gian, this one's for you. What are the possible reasons that enterprise sectors are facing problems in adapting new ways of doing business in the now normal? What possible reasons that they're facing problems?
Okay, thanks, Carla. We all know that to change or to innovate is hard, especially for big and multinational companies. Everyone, particularly in business, can become complacent in doing what they have been already working. But the old corporate saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's no longer applies into this fast-paced digital world, and companies should have to be constantly proactive, not reactive in technological advancements, as I mentioned earlier,
Right.
and innovation, and whether in terms of business processes or models and workplaces. And as I mentioned a while ago during my presentation, to develop a mindset for innovative thinking, you should remove the fear of failing and the fear of not knowing what to do or to change. And in this world that is changing so fast,
Yeah.
technology is also moving faster than before, and we should definitely adapt to change. So overcoming our fears can help you change or innovate successfully, and that will eventually lead you on to adapting to the new ways of doing business in the now normal.
Yeah. Thanks, Gian. And just to build on that a little, I think the further we get away from March of 2020, the less forgiving I think consumers are becoming in terms of, companies not being agile or companies being reactive instead of proactive, as you said. So the further we get away from the start of the pandemic, the less forgiving they are, and the more we have to be equipped, and the more we have to be,
Yeah.
as you say, proactive about it. And as you say about the fear, if you're paralyzed, you could very much drown in this environment we're in, and you might not move forward anymore, or you might not be able to keep up. So very, very good points there, I think. Let's take it now to Syed with your first solo question here, bringing it back to cybersecurity, right? So you've talked about how cyber criminals nowadays are taking advantage of the pandemic to do cyber attacks. You talked about that big jump from 4% to 34%, was it, of malicious sites using Corona or COVID in their names. And so how can we identify if our existing cybersecurity is enough to protect us against potential cyber threats? Good question there.
Right. Very good question. So I think when it comes to cybersecurity, it can be quite difficult for you to cover all angles, right? So there was a quote by one of the FBI directors before who said that it's not a matter of if you will be breached, it's a matter of when. So all organizations should be looking at, uplifting their security posture. And for you to best do this is to understand what are some of the best practices that are put out there. The likes of the US government, one of the intelligence agencies, they did have a best practice guide on combating against things like ransomware. So it is a multi-step approach, and it's typically done in layers. And you need to kind of assess what you have today and what kind of gaps there are from your own organization. And if you need some help, of course, partners like Eastern would be able to provide security assessment or posturing services to give you a better understanding of the potential gaps that are there and how you could best complement it as part of your security strategy moving forward. And I think that organizations should be looking at improving their posture on through a strategic method rather than a piecemeal method, right? Because the benefits of having everything integrated is really key today. And we're seeing a lot of organizations asking for that.
Great points there. Thanks, Syed. And I think also a good point there that, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when you could be targeted. And I think, there's so many resources, within reach, especially in these times. Everybody's, creating resources and videos and webinars like this one that we're in right now. I mean, isn't that part of why we're here, which is to kind of equip each other and show each other that these resources are within reach, and it's not difficult, and it's not so complicated that it's going to be difficult for your employees or for the people in your corporation to understand it. And so that's why we're here. And I think it's a good thing, definitely, because we definitely have to always make sure that we're equipped and we're updated with the times and so on. And so cyber criminals don't sleep. So here we are getting equipped. Okay, Gian, I'm going to bring it back to you. Today we talked a lot about banking in particular, especially in your presentation. And so in terms of the banking and other financial services providers, what technology levers are non-negotiable and which are game-changing technologies that this business sector who are planning to engage in or are already engaged in online banking or digital financing services cannot afford to miss out on? Bit of a lengthy question, so I hope all of that, I said all of that correctly. But what can we not afford to miss out on in terms of the banking and financial services providers industry?
Well, I'll start answering by saying having stable and reliable connectivity is definitely non-negotiable. Then, as we all know already, the enabler of digital transformation is definitely cloud technology. So, this would enable a company to be agile and scalable, and of course, as needed or based on demand. Also, the right collaboration tools will allow you and your team to work effectively remotely and in real time. And since you'll be handling more data than you used to, you have to make sure that your data and or your customers' data is well secured. And this is where cybersecurity comes in. And we at Eastern Communications, we have the right solutions. You need to be able to take advantage of opportunities like online banking, digital financial services, as mentioned nga dun sa questions, and of course, other business trends. Aside from the connectivity and data services, we have our very own Eastern Cloud and also a networking solution, which is SD-WAN, and just recently mentioned by Mr. Asagov a while ago, the SASE technology. And of course, we also have a full suite of cybersecurity solutions.
Hmm. Thanks, Jen. And I think that that does tie in nicely as well with what you shared with us, I guess more in depth also earlier in your presentation, wherein
Yeah.
it's important, the connectivity and the right tools. I think we've discussed before here on E-Huddle how, maybe sometimes you might, a company or a group might sort of panic and just try and get their hands on everything all at once and not even fully grasp yet if they really needed it at all. And so that's why it's great to have a partner like Eastern kind of to guide you and just give you something according to your scale, according to your specific needs. It can be a daunting task to get equipped and to get protected. So good to know that of course Eastern is here to help us better understand that. So Easterns, I know you're in the chat, say hello. Okay, so I've got another question here for Syed, and this one's specific. I guess you could address our business owners here, but would you recommend to the business owners, IT managers, and CIOs to replace their SD-WAN with SASE? What factors are needed to be considered first before availing or switching to SASE? When or how do you know to make that jump?
Right. Okay. So very good question. So there is a little bit of a problem statement there with the question, because I would say that SASE, if we look at the framework that was defined by Gartner, SASE actually encompasses both the network pillar as well as the security pillar. Right. So I wouldn't say that replace SASE with SD or replace SD-WAN with SASE, but more of enhance your SD-WAN with the security element. And I think for business owners, the first step is really to identify what your use case would be. A lot of the times, once you have lots of branches and you embark on the SASE journey, or the SD-WAN journey, once you have direct internet access, that is where cloud security would come in very handy, because now you can scale out your deployment and yet do it with security managed centrally. Right? So consistent policy across all of your different branch networks, right, as part of the SD-WAN fabric. And you can extend those functionalities, same security functionalities, over to all of your remote workers as well, right? So people working from home, right? So it's really complementary solutions, I would say.
Okay.
And as long as I think the first step is to identify if you have direct internet access and you want a peace of mind in terms of adding in security, I think that is where the cloud security aspect will come in, and then you would be starting your SASE journey.
Fantastic. And it's kind of nice to know that it's not necessarily about gutting your current system and completely starting again with replacement. So you corrected that it's more about enhancing and complementing. So at least, it's also good to know that you don't necessarily have to start from zero. And I think it's such a good, sort of mix we've got here in our panel today, wherein we can share these insights together. And so, gentlemen, that's just about all the time we've got for our Q&A today. However, let's take a moment now to just briefly give our brief parting messages. Let's start with you. Say it again. Let's start with you.
Okay, so I'd like to thank Easton for this opportunity, right? To the audience out there, I know it's been a very tough time for all of us over the past 1.5 years with COVID, but embrace it, right? It will all be over very soon. In terms of the technologies that you want to adopt, future-proof your solutions, speak to us, speak to Easton, and we can help you along the way, right? Don't do this alone. Thank you.
Definitely do not do this alone. Gian, could you wrap it up for us today?
All right. Keep in mind that with the speed of today's fast-paced digital era, we need to develop a mindset for innovative thinking to overcome the lethargy of status quo and become a digital leader. So Eastern Communications is always here to help you achieve your business goals and empower you to continue thriving. So that's it. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here on screen with me this afternoon and to answer these questions for us. So for your presentations and for this Q&A session, thank you so much to the both of you. Very, very insightful talk there.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you both. Thank you. All right, everybody. So again, thank you so much to our speakers for answering our questions for today. Now, if you guys have any further questions that were not yet addressed or we didn't get to address in today's program, don't worry too much because our Ka-Easterns will be very, very happy to, get in touch with you and answer those questions for you. So shouting out again to the Ka-Easterns in the chat today. Don't be shy, everybody, to ask more questions even, because our Ka-Easterns are very, very friendly and very, very eager to answer any questions you might have. Okay, so everybody, next up, we have something very important to show on screen. I can't stress enough how important this is to us, but we're going to be flashing a QR code on the screen right now. And what is this QR code? It is our post-event feedback form. And it would make us so very happy if you were to take a moment to scan that and let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you want to hear more about. Who do you want to see maybe here on the program? Tell us how we did. And that would be very much appreciated. So take a moment to scan that. It would be great. Okay. All right, everybody. As we get closer to the end of our webinar, let me remind you again, we're not quite done, so don't go just yet because we are now giving away our major raffle prize of the day. So let's hop to it. If you missed the first segment of this electronic raffle that we're doing, here is how it works. We're going to be flashing the name of our winner on the screen. There you go. You see the instructions there. We're going to be flashing your name on the screen. If it is your name that you see, all you have to do is take a screenshot and send it to us at marketing@etpi.com.ph. Make sure you include all of that info that you see on your screen. Okay? We're going to need that because we want to get in touch with you to get your prizes to you as soon as possible. Now, we've already given away a couple of very cool prizes. We've given away that Amazon Fire TV stick. We've given away that Xiaomi Smart Band. Now it's time for the major prize, and that is the JBL Hybrid Wired Over-Ear Headset with Flip-Up Mic. It's a long title for the item, probably with good reason, and that's why it's our major prize. So let's find out now who it's going to be. Who is the lucky, let's roll that drum roll, shall we? The winner of our JBL Wired Over-Ear Headset is, who's it going to be? Helen Guerrero, congratulations, Helen. Don't forget, you got to take that screenshot right now. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds because you're going to have to send that to us in a little while. Congratulations, Helen. And congratulations to all of our winners who got those cool prizes today. Make sure to keep your communication lines open so that we can update you on your prizes, okay? So make sure that you send over that screenshot as well. Don't forget. Okay, guys. we're gonna be really makulit about this. I'm gonna flash that QR code on screen one more time. Let's show that again. Like I said, your post-event feedback would mean the world to us. So please do take a moment to scan that QR code and let us know how we did and what you'd like to see more of, and so on. So just let us know your thoughts in that post-event feedback form. All right, guys, time really does fly, doesn't it? I mean, we had a really great time here today, so much to learn, and we are now at the end of today's webinar. But before we say goodbye, to close this session, may I call on Eastern Communications Industry Head for Conglomerates, Banking and Finance Industry, Ms. Rowena Beltran.
Thank you, Carla. It is such a pleasure to be amongst you fellow learners today. We hope that the insights shared will become your weapon in growing your business further and help you more in gathering business opportunities ahead. We have a few more coming up, so we hope you continue to support our events. You may join us next week, August 4, for the third run of our E-Huddle series. As we close, please know that we, especially your account managers, are open and here to help you with your business needs. So please feel free to reach out to us. Once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Keep motivated, keep optimistic, and keep safe, everyone. Thank you.
Ms. Rowena, thank you so much, closing it off so nicely and warmly with us today. And so everybody, it's almost time to say goodbye, but we just can't stress this enough. Like I said, we're gonna flash that QR code one more time just to encourage you to fill in our post-event feedback form. Do scan that QR code and let us know your thoughts. We would love to hear them. Okay, so that is all for today, everybody. The second leg of our Limitless Opportunities series comes to a close, but don't you worry. We're going to see you again next week, August 4th at 2 p.m. right here at Eastern E-Huddle. And you, of course, are all welcome to come and join us again then. Make sure you stay in touch by following Eastern Communications on social media. And we hope you all had a great time. This is Carla Barata signing off. We'll see you then. Bye, everyone.